Hey, hey you. Have you been thinking about playing D&D, but you don't know how to play? Well, this is going to explain the character sheet, because you probably don't know what these things mean. Now, the character name is whatever you want to name your character, you know? Like Joe Schmo. And all these rest of the things determine a lot of things about your character, like the class. So you put your level next to your class. It's like sorcerers like do magic and stuff. Background, it basically means you're poor, you're rich, you're like tribal, you're not, you know, wherever you came from in your backstory. Player name, of course, it's whatever you are. And then your race, it depends like what stat changes you have, even certain abilities. Now, human literally just gives so like boring things, but you know, search it up. Alignment, it's like basically chaotic good allows you to do what you want when you want, and it basically just makes morals and stuff. And like so this is like the stats, and this determines what your character is going to be able to do. Now, strength makes you either strong, depending on what stat you have in it, and the plus, the modifier, which is the thing below the actual thing, or is like in the middle, is what actually matters, and the thing at the bottom just is like what like determines what is your modifier, either a plus or a negative. And if you have a negative modifier, then you're gonna have a little in your strength, you know. Dexterity allows you to do jumps and like acrobatics and stuff, while having a low dexterity will make you fall and like just not be a very good member in your party. Constitution is your basic toughness. So like you see this guy, he has a high constitution. He has an 18, pretty high, +4. That's why he has a 6-pack. This guy has a -2 in constitution. He is literally a stick. Now, intelligence is basically your raw, like, mind. How you know things. And if you have a good intelligence, then you'll know a lot of things. While if you have bad intelligence, you'll be smooth-brained. And you'll probably not know much things. Now, wisdom, some people get confused on wisdom, but the basic thing is, it's the awareness of, like, around you. It's basically your common sense. If you have a high wisdom, you'll know where the traps are. And if you have a low wisdom, you'll already be in the traps. Now, charisma. Charisma is an important thing, where if you have high charisma, you can form bonds, but if you have low charisma, you'll form enemies, which will try to kill you, which is not very good. Now, you may be thinking to yourself, how do you get these so-called modifiers? And, you know, anything else? Well, the modifiers, of course, are determined from the number on the bottom. And the way you get these numbers on the bottom is by two systems. Number one, point by, which you start at 7, or no, you start at 8, and you go up by the numbers, and you have like 27 points to put through the stats, and when you get to 12, anything over that will take 2. So to max out stat to 15, which isn't the max but is for point by, it will take 10 points. Or you can roll 4d6, aka Monopoly dice, and take out the lowest one. Now, here's a stat thingy, if you're, like, you can't figure it out, but, yeah, it's pretty helpful. And, by the way, this should be next to all your things. Now, for the so-called saving throw, just add whatever you need, or whatever the modifier is to there, and then add proficiency, which is based on your level. If you're at level 1 to 4, then your proficiency is a +2, and then you get 3 when you hit level 5. But it doesn't really matter if you're proficient in constitution and, let's say, strength, you would add +2 if you're level 1 to 4. Inspiration, it can be given by bards or just the DM being nice to you, and can allow you to re-roll a certain stat. Now these are quite complicated, so I'll just run them through basically. Now the little things next to the actual word is supposed to be basically like dex would be dexterity, wiz would be wisdom, int will be intelligence, stir will be strength, ca will be charisma. You get the gist. And this is where your class depends on it, because you may be able to be proficient in certain skills if you're a certain class. Like fighters are able to be in acrobatics, athletics, and other things, but like things like artificers aren't be able to acrobatics and athletics. But anyway, enough about rambling. Yeah, being proficient in skills allows you to add 2 to any skill. Now the first box should be saying armor class. The armor class is depending on your armor, depending on your class. It really just depends on what equipment you get. And initiative is just your dexterity modifier, so just add that. Speed, which is the third top box, is dependent on your race. Hit points maximum depends on your class. Like if you're a fighter, you have 1d10 plus your constitution modifier, which is the only real thing that constitution is used for. Hit dice matter on your level, and the amount of hit dice you have is equal to your level, and saving throws only matter when you die. Anyway, this passive wisdom, and it says perception, is just 10 plus or minus your wisdom. And proficiencies in languages matters on your race or your class. Equipment, just that you can either roll a few d4s and times it by 10, and that's like how much gold you have, and then you can buy equipment, or you can just take equipment off the equipment list for your class. Features and traits is basically just like what your race and your class adds to you. The higher you go in your class, the more things you will get to add to features and traits. Now that's that sheet done. Now you might be onto the second sheet, which is basically making your character your character. This is your character name, age, height, weight, size, skin, and hair. Now this is just not really that important, but like if you're a dwarf, you'll be shorter. If you're like a Goliath, you'll be really tall, and your weight will be matter on like if you're muscular or not. Eyes and skin, yep, you know the gist. Age can matter on your thing, like humans, as we know, like probably like are really old by the time you're like 60 or 70, while halflings can live up to be 200. So you know. Yeah, so this is a character's backstory. You can make them sad, which I normally do, which is why this guy's sad. But, you know, it's just a basic rundown. And this is the spell list for spellcasters like sorcerers, wizards, and warlocks, and sometimes even artificers and bards. So here's the top bit, which is spellcasting class. You just put your class if it can cast spells. Spellcasting ability is what you add. Like for wizards, it's intelligence. For sorcerers and warlocks, it's charisma. For artificers, intelligence. And bards is also charisma. Spell save DC is 8 plus proficiency plus your whatever your spellcasting ability is. And spell attack bonus is your proficiency plus whatever your spellcasting ability is. Now this is the only spells you will really need to worry about up until 3rd level, which are cantrips, which are basically small level spells. Sometimes can do damage, sometimes just to impress people, like Shimmering Light. And level 1 spells, however, are used for a purpose, which is why you have spell slots. Like how sorcerers at level 1 have only 2 spell slots, which is kind of sad, but you know. You find that on whatever website that you choose to use. I'd recommend dndwiki for all your information, and this is just easier. But I will be yeah. So I hope you liked this quick rundown, very quickly by the way, and I'll leave a link in the description for a PDF file of all the character sheets, and a link to dndwiki. Yeah. Or you could, yeah. Yeah.